And we are live with Interchain Live. Thanks for joining us today. This is Ryan Munn, and we have an exciting guest on today with Etheralabs and Plato. We have the founder and a co-founder may join us. It's busy over there, but we've got Brian on with Etheralabs and Plato. How you doing today, Brian?
What's happening, Ryan?
We're making it happen, keeping it moving, and trying to combat the weather around here.
Excellent.
So you guys gave me a brief walkthrough previously on Plato. I'm really excited to share what you guys are doing with that. But I want to share with the audience a little bit more just your background, kind of who you are, and how you guys came together as a team. So I know Adya maybe has some noise in the background. Hopefully he can join us to contribute here at some point. But let's start off with you, Brian. What's your background, and what brings you to developing some blockchain solutions with Etheralabs?
Well, for a good part of the last 25 years, part of my daily routine is, trying to identify innovation, understand it, and kind of apply it. This was kind of by default. I bumped into the blockchain in 2014. I was tracking venture capital deployments at the time with some of the world's most influential investors, and this blockchain thing kept coming up over and over again. I thought, not only was the technology transformational, but I had the opportunity to be able to identify and track the first wave of venture capital that was deployed in the industry. Pretty much at that point forward, we became both evangelists of the potential of the technology as well as supporters of commercial innovation front to back, and we've done it in a number of interesting ways over the years.
Well, I've got to ask you real quick, do you have a quick anecdote of some insight that you got from that tracking experience of the venture capital coming into the industry?
Absolutely. So, that first wave of 86 companies, we were able to quickly sectorize the industry. And, when we saw this concentration of infrastructure companies, we knew that this was going to be pretty substantial in terms of the way data was being not only created and transferred, and certainly the bottlenecks around data. We started to identify those very, very early on. As the industry grew and our mapping, which we built into a dynamic interface, represented over 1,800 companies, we knew that some of the assumptions that we made earlier about data congestion and separating signal from noise in the industry was going to be a problem. And it's kind of where we are today, and why Plato can serve a very, very important purpose across the investment landscape in terms of standardizing the way that crypto assets are looked at and literally invested in.
Yeah, knowledge is power, but only if you can validate the information, right?
That's correct. And authentication is an important part of things. It's also understanding how people consume data, and how other people can benefit from understanding what that consumption represents.
Right on, right on. So I don't think Adis is going to be able to join us here. If he can, pop in. But if not, can you share a little bit about his background for us, and maybe how you guys came together?
Yeah, so Etheralabs as an entity, and was set up about 2 years ago, really to work in the venture space of blockchain. So we put a small team together. Adi and I had some history with another project prior to this. The cool thing about the blockchain world is sometimes you do business with people for a long period of time, you never really get to see them in the same room. So
right.
We wanted to really deploy a decentralized framework to our business infrastructure. So Adi opened up the doors to quite a few developers in India, which in turn we ended up bringing in and building our core development team there. So we're a close-knit team. Everybody on Plato, there's only been 5 touch points, people that had touch points on Plato up through now. We very much see this as a community initiative, and eventually, having an open API stack so that developers can plug into not only our data, but push that data around the universe.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and like many people in the blockchain space, I find you guys are both wearing many hats, right?
Yeah, no, we have a different hat for every occasion, I think, because we've seen so many different I would say the evolution and the transformation of things has kind of led to everybody having to have a number of skill sets here. It's about understanding the technology, certainly the culture underneath it, and the way that I would say networks and communities interface with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find that's sort of the both the exciting part and the extremely challenging part is how easily different concepts get conflated, and how also the mere existence of this technology is really a conflation of very different skill sets and expertise. A cryptographer isn't necessarily the same skills as a programmer, and certainly very different skills from a community developer. And yet it's those things that come together that create the real exciting promise of these technologies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's very hard sometimes to bring the entire spectrum of people that the blockchain world represents right now, into I would say a unified community. There is a lot of fragmentation that's going on, okay? And part of that fragmentation has to do with the way that I think that the commercial adoption is going. As more applications and enterprise applications go online, and these I would say these provable networks start to drive both data value as well as stored value, you're going to see this industry transform itself once again. The infrastructure and the investments that have been made across the banking sector was quite substantial. And those pipes that are being built right now to drive a tokenized economy is really the future promise of this industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's dive right in. Let's talk a little bit about Plato and what you guys are doing with that project.
So anyway, I just want to thank you again, Ryan, for the time today, and to speak to your audience. We're kind of in the throes of a 24/7 existence. Not only trying to survive bootstrapping, but get our own capital raising objectives going. We've worked with 16 projects up to date in various capacities. So I thought I'd give a little history of Etheralabs and kind of what we did and how Plato emerged from it.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Really from the onset of what we were doing, it was all about driving blockchain adoption. And that kind of comes in many forms due to the early stage nature of most of the companies and the technologies that we see. So we figured the best way that we could yield some influence and at the same time kind of drive that objective was on the advisory front. So we literally kind of rolled up our hands, opened up a company, and started running advisory-based business about 16 months ago. That in turn started to fuel our development resources as we kind of launched Plato in September of 2017. So we built infrastructure, and that infrastructure is there to be able to kind of drive, both, a community, our own community really, but to drive, kind of adoption and, really accelerate, I would say, both business analysis as well as technology deployment. So we had to build those resources into a development framework, which we started in GitHub. I can tell you right now that we're very proud of our GitHub repository, even though it's private at this point. But we have 45 repositories running 202 data sources and a multiple stack of APIs that are mediating between all the data that we are kind of curating in Plato right now. So we knew one thing: if we wanted to scale our data ecosystem, we had to have a really good framework there to be able to do it, and then kind of as things progressed, build we think a very cool interface to data.
Now, your repository that is private right now, is that internal use only, or is it simply private in that you're restricting who gets access, but you have some outside contributors?
Well, no, right now everything is being controlled inside. As you can see here, I'm just going to try to get to my screen for a second. Because, a lot of things not only in the blockchain space, but I say in the software space is, for better or a lack of words, kind of a little bit smoke and mirrors, right?
Sure.
One thing that blockchain does kind of provide us, do you have my GitHub screen in front of you?
I do, yep.
Okay, great. Is, to create irrefutable proof.
Yeah.
complete validation and complete consensus, and really separating truth from lies.
Yep.
We felt that having an environment to do this would eventually, yes, be fully transparent due to the nature of the data platform that we're building. This is about transparency, and it's also about the democratization of data. So we literally had to kind of go in and build this entire framework from the ground up, okay? That kind of incorporated a lot of functionality into a way that an ecosystem can serve lots of people. So when we start to talk about, peer-to-peer sharing and the ability to kind of not only tag, but I would say identify and present consumption data, it has ramifications way beyond the blockchain space, especially because we approach things in a very much a vertically centric way.
Awesome. Awesome.
Anyway, here's a front look at Plato, which we're very happy to show. This has been in development, guys, for about 16 months right now. We are kind of in the early stages now of doing capital outreach and constantly trying to refine our product and continue to build our data partnerships.
Now, Plato, this is the platform you guys showed me a little while back, but you guys have been plugging away at it. And I remember just seeing just an immense amount of data, and yet it's a very clean interface.
Well, thanks very much. As we were conceiving this, we had to look at things very much in a black and white way, right? How to create simplicity, but also how to create user interface design so that people can consume information quicker, more efficiently, and get to it without having to go through, I would say, a lot of the obstacles in the web today. And frankly, to tell you the truth, every project that we did a pretty intense front-to-back security audit, and we noticed that approximately 60% of the ICOs that we were attached to all had security vulnerabilities there. And we knew that consuming information in the blockchain world is also dangerous, let alone downloading anything. Okay.
Right.
So we wanted to create a safe and secure environment, and we've created this kind of navigational way where we're not only taking information and processing it, but we're also hashtagging it, and we're giving it a node, which again can be part of our blockchain at some point, right?
Okay.
Again, this is about building the pipes right now so that we can interconnect with an institutional audience that we're targeted against. But as you can see here, we have sources, and this is all backlinks to the original source articles on our information. And to date, we have over 58 million backlinks as well as nodes in our system, wow. which is also a pretty interesting feat because this is our MVP, and our MVP is geared to basically represent the way that we can deal with different kinds of data and drive them through a single interface environment.
Awesome. Awesome. So now is there like automatic meta tagging happening as you pull that stuff in, or you're taking the meta tags provided by the data sources themselves, or do you have a process that
we're scripting all the meta tags to it?
Yep.
Scripting it completely, and that includes also security, right? The security scan to make sure there's nothing left over. So that information that's coming inside Plato, which again, from a news perspective, we're taking all of this information from various web publications, okay? We're giving them credit because the backlink is there, okay? We're not looking to steal traffic. That's
right.
But what we are looking to do is kind of consolidate what's going on in that particular publication at any given moment, right? And bring that to the forefront. So as you can see here, we're looking at BC focus, okay?
Yep.
I basically am looking at BC focus through a multi-tabbed, card design, okay? Yeah. So as I click on that, right, I have all the information, including the backlink on there, so I can consume this information faster, and at the same time start to pick the information that I want. And this was again a way to navigate, consume information fast, and then drilling down on that stuff that we may want to pay close attention to.
Now, one thing that comes to mind for me personally is just sort of like how I, tend to consume information, especially news about blockchain, is I, have all these different sources that I go to, and I'll go through and I'll browse through, and then I'll forward myself the links to the articles that I want to read. So I don't actually take time to read the articles when I first see them. Typically, I forward them to myself, and then I have a set of emails to go through and catch up on the articles that I thought were interesting. Do you have a way to sit here and go through that card section and go, oh, I want to read this one later, I want to read this one later, I want to read that one later, and sort of plug them into a read later list that I can then pull up or even have emailed to myself in order to have that secure source to be reading the articles I've selected from your platform?
It goes a couple steps further. Our plan is about modularity, okay, and the ability for our technology to grow and scale. Once you have the infrastructure in place, you can do all sorts of interesting things in terms of not only being able to tag interest, but sharing that interest. And the value of that consumption, especially across very specific data verticals, could be immense to other people. And we think about things on a contribution level, right? How do you incentivize users to consume your information, right? And at the same time, reward them for that consumption. So we're thinking about very, very creative ways there. It's not that, again, because Plato has been set up as a freemium model, right? This is about community involvement and being able to engage the communities with applications that have data on the communities that they represent. This is especially the case across the developer communities, and I would say the way that certain protocols are, they have their own fan base, let's say. To us, we curate that consumption and that information, especially as it relates to statistics as well as network health, and we drive that across institutional analytics. Having a maturing AI now, ready to be deployed on our system, Plato will understand users, due to the way that they consume their data. That's how we identify relevance. And, we want to use this for very non-malicious, ways, building a user experience and helping people find information faster and more efficiently.
Now, though, do you think that, so like one potential target customer for you guys might be, say, a hedge fund that's getting into cryptocurrencies. Would you anticipate some concern on their part for that data being utilized, or would they even just come around and say, hey, we want the tool, but we want to pay this extra cost to not have our data shared?
So again, this is a sharing economy that we're in, right?
I agree.
we're trying to democratize it, right? Not restrict it. Okay. Right. However, when we have the interconnectivity with an institutional audience, and we have a distribution schema that has been built for that, and I will certainly be more than happy to take that offline with anybody. But literally, it puts us in creating direct pipes to the institutional audience, for syndication purposes. Okay, and the ability to bring highly innovative financial products to what we think is an audience that's very hungry to identify volatility and basically trade risk. Okay, so the crypto offers a lot of that. Okay, but the way that we've kind of created a couple of our MVP products right now, it represents something different for the industry.
Right. Now to diverge just a little bit here too, and obviously, like I love the crypto component to this and blockchain, but your tool isn't really just for crypto and blockchain. I mean, really, I see patent search here that kind of hints at that. But for instance, I've been talking to folks that do work for substance abuse, and one of their big challenges is how do we aggregate this useful information that's created by the entire industry across the United States and make it usable and consumable and garner more value from it, right? Because what happens now is a lot of this information is stored for 1, 2, or 3 years, and then a lot of it just gets scrapped because it costs something to maintain it, and it's not interconnected with other sources of information and the curation resources to really get value out of it. So it seems to me like there's a fundamental solution to your platform that is really applicable to all kinds of different industries.
It really is. And, because the development framework was built the way that it was, and, this is, again, back to crediting our team for solving this, okay?
Yeah.
If we were going to be able to scale, we needed to build a good framework in place to be able to kind of mediate with this. So we're confident in being able to kind of create Platos for different data verticals, in 90 to 120 days, okay?
Okay.
And when you start to look at other market sectors outside of blockchain, such as the cannabis sector, that mirrors the blockchain sector in quite a bit of ways, it's an emerging marketplace. There is public companies that are out there, right? Just as there are tokens that are out there. And we also have a lot of private company data that is driving this new wave of innovation that is affected by regulatory, it's affected by fundamentals, it's affected by user consumption, not only on the cannabis side of the world, but data consumption on those analysts that are covering the cannabis sector. Right. Plato is not just about financial analysis. It's about kind of engaging a vertical and a community and creating useful data for for people to consume.
So you're looking at sentiment analysis, and you're also looking at the difference in the perception of the data that occurs over time. Because, the response to data today might be one thing, but 90 days later, in light of new information, the response to that older information might change.
Yeah, it's quite amazing how mature, how fast AI is, I would say maturing and providing real life opportunities to, to be able to enhance user experience and at the same time create better efficiencies in the way that data is managed on an individual user basis. It all starts with search, right? And that's the ability. It's just the question, how do you separate the signal from noise? Plato, we were very adamant from day one that this was going to be a no advertising environment.
Right.
And it was going to be free. So people ask me, well, how do you make money? Well, we have an institutional product, and we can have the institutions subsidize the community because the institutions want the data intelligence that the community generates.
Right. Amazing. So let's see some of the, what kind of insights are you able to generate currently from your platform?
Well, we can always look at pricing. Okay, we can always look at social statistics, right, and start to get a feel what's going on there. We can research things. So, the insights that we are getting, because we are pretty much in a very closed beta right now, we're really focused on financing right now and taking this MVP into an environment that will allow us to achieve our potential. Okay?
Right.
And I don't mean to be so, that wasn't a cryptic answer.
No, I understand there's not enough user base to really provide insightful data at the moment in terms
of... Exactly. So this becomes a marketing and a user acquisition play for us. Okay. There's a lot of innovative ways. I think the crypto industry taught a lot of people about online marketing. And CPAs, right? During the last wave, right? That, due to the unprecedented growth of ICOs in 2017, a lot of money that was spent on marketing to achieve that growth. And the industry itself has provided, I would say, some very interesting marketing in terms of user acquisitions. Because we don't have a current blockchain running underneath this, we want to stay pretty agnostic to, the fact that we are non-biased, platform. We're pushing anybody's agenda. We're basically here to push the industry's agenda and get this technology and the companies that comprise it front and center.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, are there existing blockchain platforms? Maybe you can't say this, but I would imagine that some that are aware of this might be reaching out, asking to implement some connection with your solution on their platform.
Yeah, there's been some discussions on that front. You know, we try to stay away from most of the noise there.
Yep.
Because look, it's not easy. This is not an easy process. If it was, you know, even though by the number of tokens that are out there, right? And last number I heard yesterday was somewhere probably about 16,000. Okay.
Right.
Even though in Plato we're only tracking 4,000 or so in here. And again, this is kind of how our fundamental pages look, all the way down to a team level. So, you know, we are creating a resource directory for people in the industry to connect to other people.
Right.
But, you know, getting back to the blockchain stuff, you know, we were very fortunate to partner early on with a company out of Santa Monica called Byzantium.
Yep.
They've done some wonderful things in terms of pioneering blockchain as a service. We just haven't really sat down and architected, you know, why we would pick one blockchain over another. You know, we're still trying to define the product first, which again is, we know that, you know, if you are going to apply a blockchain to a product, they have to go hand in hand and they have to sync. Right. You know, you could either build the blockchain first and then design the product afterwards. We focused on designing a product first and trying to build a business out of it.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. Right on. So to what extent can viewers get access to this today, or what dates down the road should they be looking at for functionality?
Well, we're working very, very hard at getting this into commercial readiness. If anybody wants to send me an email at Zephyr@Etheralabs, that's ETHERALABS.io, I'll be more than happy to send them a link. Excuse me. You know, otherwise, you know, just be on the lookout for it. You can go to platoprojectalso.io and register through Google. We may not have that open too much longer, so if you want to poke around on this, you know, dev side of things, by all means.
platoproject.io.
Yep.
Okay. And yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I should probably I can't remember if I did that already. I think I had intended to. Did I get around to it? Let's find out. Because I definitely want access to this.
Yeah, well, we're not really tracking too much information on you, by the way, Ryan. So you have nothing to worry about. Okay.
Right.
Again, creating permissions for users to connect with each other is important. Running AML and KYC on our community is important, so that we know that, you know, we're making every effort we can to be able to provide a compliant gateway, right, between both innovation and the people that drive it. So, you know, from a freemium perspective, and, you know, trying to create an open community, you know, it really is about engaging the developers, right? Yep. And having them also aware of what's going on in the industry. You know, you can't just live in a bubble all the time. You know, you have to pop your head out once in a while and see what other people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that brings up an incredible point too, that, you know, the learning, we talk about the learning curve a lot. We think of sort of the people coming into the space, but there's this whole other learning curve of these, you know, amazing developers and amazing technologists, and even the business people, but they get stuck in that sort of echo chamber, right, of what they're working on, and they forget that there's, you know, 7 billion other people out there, and possibly a few of them that have a similar idea. And there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration. There's a lot of opportunity for better competition by being aware of what's going on out there. How do you see that really playing out with your platform?
Well, again, we're trying to standardize the way these assets are looked at, right? Because they're all non-correlated and they're still confusing. They're confusing by nature. It's basically a casino roulette table. And, you know, we believe that as fundamentals start to get established, and even those, you know, those may have more to do at this point with trading fundamentals, okay? Yep. Some predictability can be applied against, you know, creating, you know, I would say real world asset classes built on the blockchain. And we're seeing quite a bit of that right now. And, you know, as the march towards STOs now, you know, this year on an exchange level, you know, there's still not enough companies that are taking the plunge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, people talk about sort of cryptography and thinking that it has everything to do with anonymity and all these things that are sort of linked with Bitcoin, and yet even Bitcoin really doesn't create anonymity. The whole purpose of it really is to say, hey, if all of these people demand that everyone uses this certain kind of technology, it forces an openness and a better democratic process around monetary supply, around system architecture. It just pushes all of these concepts that we've called the democratic experiment for thousands of years, but it pushes that into the technology space, into the protocol level of the technology. And that's what I found, I think that's what struck me as exciting as I was learning about blockchain and Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012. And I think that's what's still driving the real progress in the space is the democratization, as you said, of this technology and what it really allows us to do.
Yeah, no, we need another crypto kitty.
Yeah, exactly. We need something that's a little bit annoying, but a little bit funny. And
I understand that, but that has, again, we think in the future, in future terms right now. The values of companies are going to be reflected back on the impact that they have. And there's a new economy that's going on, and I think that's the way companies are going to be measured. But having a crypto kitty out there, or the stickiness of a crypto kitty, doing something else, such as creating I don't know, safety data, let's say, okay, or something about traffic. It
Right.
doesn't. To us, it's about how to take this network data and mediate between it, where everybody can be contributing. Every node is important. Remember, it's like you can't just you can compensate.
Right.
You can compensate, but that compensation eventually, loses its value.
And to just extend on those analogies, every node is important, every vote is important. We're talking about getting participation up, and I want to comment to this because there's a lot of cop outs that I hear around the idea that human nature or this has been proven this way or this has been proven that way. When we're testing human nature and we're testing human behavior, we can't assume that the results of one test are the facts. They're relative to a point in time. And what I encourage everyone to realize is that what this technology is granting us is the immutable history to be able to reflect upon our decisions and make better decisions moving forward. And with that opportunity, I believe we can teach people to recognize the real hope and power instilled in them. Whereas now, I think most people don't vote because they don't feel it is effective. They don't feel that it empowers them. And this is what changes that. This is the technology that takes that expression and makes it more powerful and allows people to truly engage and allows us to get more people engaged so that we have a better result because every node does count.
Yep. I'm a fan, Ryan.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully in the future we can get Adi on to share with an audience, but I know how busy you guys are and I'm really glad you're still working at it. And thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, audience. All you guys watching, pay attention, stay tuned, and go out and vote and get your voice heard. Have a wonderful day.